I'm back. It's the next day in the afternoon. It's been about 24 hours. Our unit's good and dry. There's a number of things I want to explain to you about the next step, which, by the way, doesn't really need to be done. Let me explain why. The unit here is good and dry. And it's ready. Before I get into some of the particulars of how to route and polish the unit, I like to go and say that you don't need to do it. The only reason that you're routing and polishing it is really for looks. This way, if you don't want to, meaning you'll have the overhang here and it won't have a polished look, you don't have to invest in a router bit, which I have right here. You don't have to invest in a MAP gas container, which, you know, professionally and in the shop I have hydrogen, oxygen. But when I work at home, everything's done with the MAP gas. Now, without wanting to route or polish, the bulk of your money doesn't have to be invested. As long as you get this cut, you really almost don't need anything. Like when you buy one of our kits, we also have the solvent bottle kits and everything, where you actually get a package of needle and glue and everything. And literally, if you just have a kitchen table, you could build one of these. Now, the rest of this video is going to be for the people who want more of a professional quality. They actually want to take the lip off, have a nice smooth finish, and then polish that finish. But just to let you know again, it's totally not necessary. You can take this filter, drill a hole here if you want an external pump. You can add your media. You can put a light across here for your refugium. You can add your protein skimmer and everything, even though it has a lip. Okay? So I just want to let people know that you do not need to go invest $100 in a router, $25 for a bit, $40 for the polisher. It's not necessary. But for the people who want to, let me give some explanation on the equipment. Let's go over what we need to do in the proper order and procedure to route this, and then I will actually route this and polish it. I don't like doing it indoors. It's a mess. Shavings are flying everywhere. So we're going to go outside into the backyard. In the snow, by the way. I'll lay a piece of cardboard down and I'll route this right there in 38-degree weather right now. Then we'll bring it back in, clean it, polish it. We'll take a close look at the seams, and hopefully I'll answer all your questions. But the first thing is, let's talk about what we got here. This is a router. If you've never used a router at all, please do a little research. Have someone with a router show you a router and what to do. I can't go in all the particulars of the use of a router and also the way to hold it and etc. That comes with practice and the feel. But you find a neighbor or a friend that has a router, just to show you what it's all about, how to take the bit off, using the wrenches, etc. But I'm going to assume that you at least have a basic knowledge of a router. I like to use Porter cables. You can use anything you want, but these work very good in a commercial application for the cost. I can get a good 1 3/4 horsepower router for about $125 mail order. You can buy routers at Home Depot for $30, $40. That would be fine for, routing a few of these. So you don't have to spend $125, but I do like it. The bit that you use I prefer 1/2-inch bits with bearings on top. They can have 1 or 2 bearings. The ones I have on here has 2 bearings and it's spiral cut. This is an $80 bit, but generally if you can just get a dual carbide blade bit, it has 2 blades. I prefer to use 2 cutters instead of 3. The ones with 3 blades, you have to go a lot slower. It gives a little more smoother finish. But with the 2 cutters, you get a good finish, and you don't have to be so slow and careful. You gotta have a good bearing on it though. Now let's see if we can get a close-up on this. This one has 2 bearings. You set your base for just a little bit greater than the distance of the material. This material is 3/16. I have this set the distance from the base to the top of the cutter at about 1/4 inch. That way it's taking off the material and there's just a little bit more. Okay? You'll understand more as we go on and I show you, and then when you actually watch doing it. But all it is a trim flush router bit. It's 1/2 inch, carbide tipped. Don't worry about solid carbide, they'll cost you a fortune. But you can get these carbide tips for $20, $25, depending on the grade of carbide. It has to have a bearing on top. Okay? In a commercial application, or if you'd like to do it yourself in your garage, you can build a router table where you actually mount this under a table, route a hole or drill a hole, and you can actually run the filter along on the table to route it. For home use, to do 1 or 2, it's, you know, whether or not you want to go to trouble to build a table, you're better off just using a hand router in which you actually hold the router and then route on the unit. There's a particular order when you're routing, and I'm going to go over this here so that when we're outside doing it, it'll be pretty difficult to talk over the noise of the router. So I'm going to explain everything first indoors. You start out your router with the unit upside down. Just like this. I'm going to be doing it on the ground. Everything's the same except I'll be bent over. A little bit more on the back. But you always start by routing the bottom off first. Okay? And there's a reason for that. If you try to do the side first, the base is going to hit the lip of the bottom. It's simple as that. If you try it yourself and you'll understand. So it's important to get the bottom routed first. When you are routing, you always start on your left and move to your right. Now, that's obviously assuming that the work is in front of you. You know, if I'm routing on this other side, I would actually be starting on the right to the left. But when you are working with the material you're routing towards your stomach, it's always left to right. In other words, you are going counterclockwise. Imagine if I have a clock right here. You would be going counterclockwise. That's very important because of the angle of the blades of the bit. If you go backwards, you'll tend to ruin the bit. You won't get the same finish. So you have to realize that you start on your left and you route to your right. Okay? Now, when I start, I usually do my front. I go to the side, the other side, and then back. I take care of the whole bottom. It's important to go slow. If you go fast, too fast, you'll end up with a lot of pit marks. You have to go slow enough so the blade can keep up the chip removal. As it's going, it's going to want to remove the chips. Another thing that might help is a little WD-40. Actually put it on the bearing of the bit, and you can even take a little piece of paper towel and rub it right here in acrylic. That's a little secret that fabricators do in the shop. Is it gives enough slickness where there's no chance for the bearing to seize up. Because if it does seize up temporarily, you can get a little mark. Okay, so you know, rub a little oil, spray a little WD-40 on a piece of paper towel, rub the edge of the acrylic all the way around, put a little bit on the bearing, and it will give you a little better and smoother finish. And also go slow. when you actually see me routing it, you'll get an idea of how slow. But generally, we start here, and I have one handle on this. You can have two. They have what's called D handle routers. It doesn't matter. I usually hold the body anyway. And I usually go about this slow. I go all the way around. Hold it steady towards it. Don't let it tip. As I said, you might want to practice with a router, have someone show you how to use a router, but I am making an assumption that you've at least used a router and have a basic idea. But don't let that deter you from building a filter if you never have. Number one, as I said, you can use it without routing. Or you can have someone do it for you. You go all the way around, approximately this speed, come back around to you. Okay? Turn it upside down, shut it off. Feel your edges. Make sure you didn't miss a spot, like you could have not had your bearing right on the acrylic for a brief second and you have a little hump. If so, go back over it again. But don't get too fast. You'll end up with little pit marks, okay? Now, we have our bottom done. The next step is to take care of these four sides. You do not route the top. There's no overhang to route. You know, some people accidentally end up routing the material here to the framework, but you don't need to do that. Now, using the same theory of left to right, you would start on your left, go to your right. Now, you don't have to turn this to your stomach every time, as long as you know the direction. You know, if you want to work out here, that's fine, but as long as you always work counterclockwise. If you notice here, I have a lip. Here, let's see if we can get in a little closer. But with this lip, it would not allow me to lay my router flat. But if the bottom has already been routed, it is now flat. That is why you have to do the bottom first, okay? You route to the end. It's very important that you have control of your router and you're watching what you're doing. A lot of people, when they come to the end, will slip around. And what happens is there's no side for the bearing to ride on, and you'll actually route into the front. That commonly happens until you're used to doing it. It won't ruin anything, but you'll have a little dip right here in the front. So you want to go slow. You start from here to the end. What you're also going to notice here is a slight divot sometimes. It depends on how low you have your router. So after you've done that, you might want to just turn the router sideways and just get that little ½ inch at the bottom on the corner. You'll understand what I'm saying. Once you go here, feel the corner with your finger and you see a tiny bump there, hold the router and go this way and you'll be able to take care of it. You've done one side, now do the other side. And as I said, I usually will just take it and go like that and like that. I don't turn it every time. But I'm doing it right now just to make sure you don't accidentally go backwards with the router. See, as long as your work is to your stomach, you always go left to right. We've done both of these sides. Now let's turn it around and do the other two sides. Left to right, here, left to right. Okay? Now all your overhang edges should be routed off clean. You're going to have some paper that's going to be sticking out, film, but we'll show you how to take care of that in a little while. Now that I covered routing, I hope some of your questions will be answered when you actually see it being done. And as I said, feel free to email me. Let's go over a little bit of the polishing aspect. The matte flame I use usually is in a yellow container. I like the benzomatic. The container itself you can buy at Home Depot for about $8. And believe it or not, this container allows me to polish about 100 filters. It's $8. The handle, the igniter and the tip and everything is about $30, especially if you buy one like this that automatically lights it. You can buy them a lot less expensive. Probably get one for $15, but you have to light it with a sparker. This one has a built-in sparker. It's about $30. All you do is screw it on the canister. That's it. The only difference is the flame is not as hot as hydrogen, and you have to go a little slower. And you hold it parallel to the edge, close, and go slow. And we'll go over that a little more as I'm actually polishing, because I'll be able to do it that way. You can hand polish with a buffing wheel, the way they used to do it in the old days, but it'll take quite a while to do something like this, so it's not even worth covering. To set yourself up for hydrogen oxygen is about $900 if you buy the tanks and buy the welding unit, so I don't see it being even worth it in a home situation. Matter of fact, it's probably not even worth it in a commercial situation if you're only building a half a dozen of these a week. Okay? But the polishing itself is pretty easy. Just to let you know, all you do is click and you have a flame. As I said, the flame is not as hot as hydrogen. You're going to have to go a lot slower. When you polish, you tend to do it just like a painter, where you start here, go through the seam and out, as opposed to concentrating heat like that. But we'll go over that a little more. Now, once you route the unit, it's going to be dirty. It's going to be filled with shavings. You need to blow it off. I spray the whole thing with cleaner, just wipe it with a towel. I have a vacuum and blower. It's inside, but I get the bulk of it off that way. What else you're going to have to contend with is the little pieces of paper, which I hit with a sandpaper. And as I said, we're going to go over all this when I actually do it, but right now you just sand all the edges, get all the paper off, clean it all. It's important to clean it with glass cleaner, because if the flame hits any dust or dirt, it will turn brown. Okay, so it's important that your edges are clean before you hit it with a flame for polishing, okay? I think I've covered most aspects now of the finishing without actually doing it. I'll go over it again and go through some details in doing it, but we're gonna move outside now. Generally what you're gonna see outside is, so that I don't sit this in the snow, I'm gonna lay a piece of cardboard on the snow. Plug in my router, route it. By the way, the shavings won't hurt your grass. It's actually pretty good for the soil aerating. It's like perlite, the little polyethylene balls. In the snow, you won't even see the shavings; they're clear. So I'm not concerned about that, But I go do it outside just to alleviate the mess. If I have a garage workshop, you do it there, but to be honest with you, in the grass you don't have to clean up the shavings. It's quite a mess to clean up. So if you have a dedicated area, I actually prefer to do it outside, in a home situation like this. So what we're going to do is lay it on the cardboard. I'm going to lay this upside down, and I'm going to go through the routing process. I may not be able to talk too much because the router's noisy, but you'll see the actual procedure. It only takes a few minutes, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to bother with the oil and all that. The bearings are already oiled, but that is a good suggestion. One note about using the oil: when you do, you make sure you clean it well with the cleaner. You don't want the oil residue. As long as you spray it with glass cleaner and clean it, the oil will come off, so that's not an issue with flame polishing. Do make sure you do clean it off. So let's move out to outside, and I'll see you in a few minutes outside. Thank you.
Okay, go.
Okay, you got me down here?
It's already filming.
How are you? We just got done with that routing. I did it quickly. You could see there was snow on the ground, and it hit 38 today, and it started drizzling a little bit. I don't really want the router out there in the rain, but you know, things like that are going to happen at home, so I figured let me do this realistically. I have the unit here. I gave it a quick wipe down with a towel. I got most of the shavings off. You'll notice, you'll probably zoom in a little bit and see that there's this white fuzz all around the edge. It's little bits of the film. And that would catch on fire as we're flaming. So what I do is I take a little bit of sandpaper, I hold it on an angle, about 45 degrees, going back and forth. You'll see how it comes off. I do that for all the edges. Doesn't take long. Now even when you have paper, you'll get like paper residue on the edges. Okay, so we have all that. Then I also turn it on its sides. Sometimes you can do it all at once. Like this. And on its other side. And you'll find at this point it's a little bit staticky, especially with the temperature difference and stuff. Try to keep a nice work area, especially when you're in a back bedroom. In your garage, you don't have to go to such lengths. Although either way, you're gonna have to clean it up. Theoretically, that is. Really sand. Usually, there's nothing on top because you didn't route, but I'll sand it anyway. Okay. I take all scrap, I'll throw it in the garbage. My next step is, before flaming, is that I want to clean it. I don't know, right now there's a lot of dust, particles. So what I do is I take my cleaner and I spray it everywhere. Not heavy on the inside, because I actually vacuum the inside out. You can do it any way you want. But I take this and I wipe. Especially concentrate on the seams, you know, and everywhere that you would actually, a flame would touch. Okay? And this doesn't really take any rocket science here, just to clean it. But generally you want to get it all the dust off the edges. Nice and clean, at least clean enough for routing. We have this bad boy clean now, clean enough to actually flame. What we're going to do is I'm going to do the next thing, which is to flame. And we're going to get some detail. So let's get some detail right now. How you doing? We're here with my handy dandy trusty flamer. What I do to keep track of flaming is I tend to do everything on top, including the framework in front of me that I can see, and all the baffles. And then I do the front bottom seam. Then what I do is I go around and do the side, do the other side, turn it around, do this front seam and the bottom seam. So that's the order we're going to do. So let's start. First thing we do is ignite our flame. We start. Watch closely. my turn it to do the side. The other side. Now let's catch, we didn't get the frame here and the bottom here. So first is the bottom. Very good. Now we have the unit flamed. What I'm going to do, as I promised, is I'm going to wipe it down a little bit, and I'm actually going to peel the paper and show you the seams itself that you helped me build. So just give me a brief moment to wipe the paper down and peel it, and we'll go from there. Okay, enough with the details. How are you? I just vacuumed the inside out, and I actually gave it a quick wipe and peeled it to show you the masterpiece you helped me build. Okay, let's go in a little bit on the seams so you can take a look at the clarity. Hopefully it'll show up to the level I'd like you to see it. But there's the side. How clear the baffles are. Also your bottom. Hopefully you can see if there's no bubbles. See other baffles. Your other seams. Even your framework. It really came out nice. Here's a top view. Be proud of the filter that you helped me build, that you will be able to do yourself. Okay, let me put this up on a table and give you another view so that I can explain a little bit how it works for you. Thank you. There you have it, your masterpiece. This filter will last you a long time. This filter is as good as the ones that we sell commercially, and it will be for you too. Right now, what I want to do is just give a very brief explanation. Since this is more for your do-it-yourself hobbyist, you should know how this works better than I do even. But I want to give a brief explanation how this refusion would work. Remember, if these baffles weren't in here, you would have a sump, and you would also just glue a bar in on the side, which you don't even need to do. It's just extra measure. But right now it's set up as a refusion. Okay? To keep things simple, number one, this is the chamber here where your skimmer goes. I can't go in great detail, I don't know the type of skimmer you have, but most skimmers are, larger skimmers have their own power head that runs them. The skimmer will go in here. The water level is set by this baffle, which is approximately 10 inches. So the water level from here to here will be 10 inches, which helps you set your skimmer. Because if the water level varied, you'd have to adjust the skimmer, for the level that it would froth into the cup. When it evaporates, water will go lower in the return area, but this will always stay the same. This is where your water inputs from the aquarium and overflow, and this is where it outputs. The gap here is where the inlet of the water goes in. So the water goes in through this gap, rises up to this 10-inch level, and this is your refusion. This is where you would actually put a light. You put a small reef full spectrum reef lighting across on the bracing here, and whatever flora or live rock or caulerpa or whatever you want to use in your refugium, it will be well lit from the light. You have your skimmer here. We usually just drop our hose into this first chamber from our overflow. It makes it simple. But if you like, you can drill a hole right here, a 1 3/4 inch hole for a Schedule 40 bulkhead, 1 inch, or a 1 3/8 inch hole if it's a regular PVC type bulkhead. Although when you're doing that, your water has to go down a 90-degree turn, which obstructs some of the water flow. So it's much easier just to put a hose, you know, 1 inch vacuum hose right into this chamber. You can put a sock in the corner here to help pre-filter, but usually it's done in the overflow. You have your skimmer self running, meaning it draws water from here and puts the water back out. It enters here, give you about a 3-inch sand bed if you like, without the sand backing up into the first chamber. The water rises. A lot of times we add pads or bio balls to this chamber to help break the bubbles that might come from the skimmer. And you put your return pump here. A lot of times people use 2 return pumps and the hoses come right out the top. You can put a bulkhead down here, not even put your pump there into the chamber, have your pump on the outside, but now you have another bulkhead that could eventually leak a few years down the road. The neoprene gaskets tend to harden up. But it's pretty much that simple. A lot of people like a lid. I recommend polycarbonate, not acrylic. Polycarbonate, which is, quote, the bulletproof window material, will bow less from water absorption. If you have your light in the middle here, you can put a lid on each side. Obviously you'll have to have cutouts for the hose and the skimmer, but it would reduce water evaporation. But it's that simple. That's how you can use this filter, and it will work very well for you. Any questions that you might have, anything I can help you with, please feel free to email me. I'll help you as much as I can. And remember, the kits are available. They're a good price. Go to the website, especially if you're looking to just build 1 unit and you're not building quite a few units at a single time. Or you like to try 1 unit, you find that you are good at it, then at that time you might want to go buy 4 or 5 units, you know, material, and make them for all your friends. Thank you for being with me the last few hours. I appreciate it. Take care.